One of the key things which freelancers will frequently comment on is the advantages and also the disadvantages of being able to work from home. One of the massive advantages with freelancing in general is that you can obviously work wherever you want in the world. And ultimately, most people will choose to work from home because after, spending a lot of time commuting back and forth from an office, suddenly you have a huge amount of time back. For me personally, I spend about 50% of my time working from home, and the other 50% is split between coffee shops and client locations. And that provides a fairly good balance for me. Now, I do enjoy working from home simply because it cuts out the commute of having to go anywhere, but you'll certainly find that there's potential disadvantages with it. First of all, there's a loneliness factor because ultimately, especially if you've previously been in an office environment, by being just by yourself, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours a day can be pretty isolating. It's also the case, on the other hand, that it can be very distracting, particularly if you have kids, for example. You're rarely in a space where you can shut yourself off from the outside world. Even if you don't have kids, it's very common to fall into the trap of being at home thinking, well, I'll just do this bit of cleaning or I'll get some washing done, between doing things. And even though you can, you end up filling your day with an awful lot of distractions which needn't be there. Particularly for a lot of the work I do, I find that I really need some deep time working through it. So that is 2 or 3 hours of solid, complete concentration. Now that is a very hard thing to come by if you're jumping up and down, just feeling you need to do other things around the house, or because you're jumping up and down because you have kids which need attention. Although just because you're working at home, you still need a setup and a routine, and in particular a place from which to work from. In an ideal world, if you have a separate place in your house that you can define as your office space, then do it. There is no point just doing a few hours on the sofa, a few hours in another room, and jumping about that way. I find that by sitting in a defined place actually sort of sets me up and puts me in the right mindset to be able to get work done. It's also the case that it provides a division between work life and home life, because by working from home, that does create a real blur. That makes it a lot harder to switch off. So again, having that defined space, and if necessary, a defined routine in order to be able to get your work done is something which I'd highly recommend. There are some people who find that working from home, really works for them. But I found quite early on that actually working any more than a couple of days from home in succession, I really didn't feel good up here. Now, that is something which I'm just conscious and I'm aware of. So I also have a policy with myself that unless there's some exceptional circumstances, that for any day that I work from home, the following day I need to go out somewhere. It's just a case of sort of being able to engage with other people, because otherwise I could spend the entire day just not talking to anyone at all. Again, with all of this, you have to test it out and find what is right for you. Home working definitely has its advantages, but that shouldn't be at the detriment of your health or mental health in terms of being able to do that. If you do start to feel that way, then certainly go and find some decent coffee shops in the nearby area. All you're looking for is some decent coffee and some decent Wi-Fi. At the same time, co-working spaces can be a fantastic resource from a social perspective. You don't necessarily need to be constantly talking to these people, but just having other like-minded individuals which are working hard and focusing on their businesses can be a real inspiration to you in being able to get your stuff done as well. At this stage, a couple of people have said, why don't you think about getting your own office? And for me personally, that isn't something which really appeals, partly for the cost of doing it, because I'm trying to keep things relatively lean, and if I can work at home for free, then I don't see why I should be paying potentially hundreds of pounds out to someone else to sit in another location. Having my own office also doesn't have the advantage of being able to socialise with other people, but again, it might be something that works for you, particularly if your overall strategic objectives are to start running an agency or to build a team. Then you are going to need to look at getting formal premises in order to be able to achieve that. But for me, that's not something that I want to do at the moment. So in terms of working from home, try and cut out as many distractions as possible and try and have a very defined workspace with where you work from within the home. See how it goes. You might like it, you might hate it, but either way you need to try it out and see if it's something that works for you.